Hey everyone, and welcome to Big Red Homestead. I'm Josh, that's Caleb, and today we're talking Nebraska football and the first ranked game in Memorial Stadium between two teams, which feels like 1,000 years at this point. And so we have a ton to talk about today. X factors, keys to the game, predictions, and what we can learn as well from the Northern Iowa game to take with us the rest of this season. The little hints that we left behind for the teasers, what we could find for the rest of this year. So it's going to be a fun one. Caleb, how you doing?
Man, I'm great. Fourth game in a row in Memorial Stadium. It could not be better. It's such a great way to kick off the season. It's nice to stay at home, to just be able to get to go to all the games. Crazy to be relevant, to be talked about in the national media, to go to my phone and just, I don't have to like click to Big Ten or like find my favorites.
See,
I can
Pat
just go to top
McAfee.
I can just click. I can click top 25, and there Nebraska is in the games. Right. We were at the last time Nebraska played two ranked teams. It was Ohio State versus Nebraska when we lost 62-3. That was the last time we were ranked.
Home or away?
It was home or away. That was the last time,
and we were there witnessing that beatdown.
Yeah, seeing Tommy Armstrong.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Hopefully our quarterback doesn't suffer the same fate as that game. Knock on wood. Oh my goodness.
We got a lot of positive momentum for us. We've won the 100th sellout, the 200th sellout, the 300th sellout, and now sellout 400, baby. There's something exciting to play for in Nebraska. It is an electric environment. It is going to be insane on Friday night. Well, let's talk about the Northern Iowa game.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, basically, I think how we're going to do it today is we're just going to talk over a few talking points and then really get to the meat of this thing, which is breaking down the strengths and weaknesses of Illinois and the X factors. So what is the biggest takeaway for you from a game against Northern Iowa? It was competitive and it was a hard-fought game there, especially in that first half.
My biggest takeaway is the excitement of development. While usually in the FCS game, you want to see you dominate and you see the young guys come in, what we've actually seen is the young guys have just been valuable right away. Starting. Carter Nelson, first touchdown. He had two of the big plays to set that up. I wasn't expecting that. I figured he had so much to do to improve, to learn how 11-man football works, to have 22 guys on the field, but his athleticism is clearly there. He looks like to be the heir apparent best tight end already on the team. I know he's kind of a wide receiver, he's a hybrid. He looks amazing in that position already. Ja'Cory Barney continues to be the most exciting wide receiver on our team. I can't wait
currently
for
the ninth highest graded, after 3 weeks, the ninth highest graded receiver in the Power 5 on PFF out of 200 qualified. So pretty insane.
I hope he learns the playbook. I want him out there every play. I want Carter Nelson out there every play. They look to be two of our best wide receivers. I'm excited for the future.
Not to mention the defense. Yeah, right?
Yeah. Not to mention defense or Dylan Raiola.
Oh, yeah, there's that. Right. It really is wild. I mean, even the young guys on the defensive side. I mean, we talked about Vince Shavers coming in, and you have Stephen Thompson come in and look good, but in the second half, Vincent Shavers also looked really, really good. And so you have a lot of these young guys coming in and making a legitimate impact right away in Nebraska history, but really in football in general. When young guys in their freshman year show that flash, generally it almost always translates to the future to being a dominant player, or at least an extremely, extremely good player in the conference. And so you have to feel good about the way that this team is being built right now from the ground up, with this so many freshmen so involved and finding those gems in the recruiting classes.
Being a freshman that eventually show it. Let's continue to beat the Emmett Johnson drum. We have said that he's been the best running back. Clearly, again, he looks like the best running back, had the most yards, less touches than Dowdell. I know that he's a physical runner, but Emmett continues to look so impressive. Then also catching the ball. He had the great touchdown run. He just has a little bit more speed, got a little bit more flash, a little bit more sizzle. And again, he has great yards after contact. He has great yak. So
yeah, right now Emmett's currently ranked 28th out of 155 qualified RBs in elusive rating on PFF, which is like missed tackles forced divided by like attempts and receptions and yards after contact. So like he definitely is explosive and again physical for his size as well. I think Dowdell's still really good, like you said. I think both of them,
he's good.
They're great. They're a great combination. I think we're three deep there with Emmett, Dowdell, and Rahmir, who are all really solid. But in my opinion, right now, Emmett's like the clear third in reps and snaps, when I think, in my opinion, he should be the first, and then the other two should be close. It should be a more balanced approach to snaps, not as heavy-handed towards Dowdell or Ramir. So I really like Emmett. Again, even in PFF grades, he's 13th right now out of 157 qualified Power 5 RBs. So he's, on paper, he's doing it. The scouts like him. And I think he's passed the eye test in the second half of that game. You can see the explosiveness, the lateral speed. In my opinion, his upside as a runner is extremely high. I mean, it's Amir Abdullah-esque high by his senior year. If he
said he wants guys that makes the plays, and I mean, he's made the most.
He's made all the most. Offseason, Barthel, Rhule, Satterfield, they all talked about how they want the RB who is best at making the guy miss in the second level and breaking the big play. It's clearly Emmett Johnson.
We also saw on defense, I was disappointed moving over to the defensive takeaways for NIU. I was disappointed at first with that 10-minute drive that NIU had after we score a touchdown super fast. They sucked the life out and continued to move the ball really well. But I will say the defense tightened up, and we run so much zone in these first games, and that's really all we ran. And shout out to NIU for really attacking that and making us pay, doing great things to zone beaters. And as the game went on, Tony White made the adjustments, and that's why I like Tony White so much. He makes great adjustments within the game. We saw that Frost could score a touchdown on the first drive. He could see what was on the film from the last guys, score one, maybe two touchdowns off it.
But the second half, it was over.
But then by the second half, it was goose eggs, on our score, and that's why we couldn't hold on. That's why it felt like we continued to choke, because there was just no adjustments.
You're coming off the Colorado game. I genuinely think that's one of those emotional roller coasters where the underdog team's coming in just juiced on adrenaline that first drive. You get caught flat-footed. Luckily, they forced a field goal. It gets a bit more scary if you give up a touchdown there. But like you said, the transition to man is legitimate. I mean, I think what happened was originally we were hoping to go into this game and just play zone, similar to like what we did against UTEP, and just dominate the game based off our physical nature and our dominance as athletes. But UNI, they really coached a really good game, and they came with a great game plan to attack it, like you said. And so it forced his hand. It forced the hand to change to man. I mean, going into the game, the average player in the first two games only played 2.4% man. And now on the season, the average is up to like 14% for most of our defenders. So we played quite a bit more man in this game in the second half. It is interesting to see, and you obviously saw the differences there with the talent that we have on the perimeter, and it works especially against a team like that. The one issue, or not issue, but maybe just a little bit of a flag that I wanted to bring up was the game management there after the INT that ended up being the reviewed INT. I mean, Rhule challenged that INT when, by definition, it's pointless to challenge a turnover because it's automatically reviewed. So if you throw the challenge flag in that situation, you're just wasting a timeout and a challenge. And so it's one of those issues where we talked about it multiple times. Rhule's in-game management at times, specifically clock management and decisions like this, can be a little bit questionable. And this is one of those situations where Rhule got caught a little flat-footed here as a coach and made a mistake challenging something emotionally reacting on the sideline. Probably got caught with the fans' reactions because it was pretty loud. Just something to keep in mind. We know we've had these clock management issues in the past, i.e. Minnesota, Maryland, things like that last year. So it's just a little bit worrying that we're still seeing a few game management issues from the coaching staff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The last thing we'll talk about, and we're going to talk about the future, but the offensive line blocking, definitely a problem. And that's a huge teaser, but we're going to be talking about in the future here in this video when it comes to X factors and things that we need to see in this game moving forward into the rest of the season.
Not good.
It hurts. So, like I said, I think we'll talk about the rest of the team here moving forward into the predictions and the breakdowns on our X factors and everything. So let's hop into the Illinois game. I mean, this is huge. Again, a ranked game in Memorial Stadium, a night game on a Friday. The whole country is going to be watching this game. Nebraska opened up odds-wise at 8.5-point favorites, and it's already bet up to 9.5. So this is significant, bigger than the Colorado game when it comes to a lead, and one of our biggest, favorites. I'd be interested to know last time we were favored as heavily against a relatively good
ranked team.
I mean, a ranked team? Oh my.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
A long time.
2010 maybe? I'm genuinely wondering.
Yeah.
But like, as for Illinois, I mean, going into this year, there was a ton of question marks about this team. They had lost so much talent. I mean, in the last 12 years, they'd finished with a losing record in 11 of the last 12, besides their miraculous year with Devon Witherspoon and the young Jer'Zhan Newton and that insane defense. But and going into this year, they were a 5.5 win over-under team. So like, they've already got 3 right now, 3-0 with their team a win against a ranked Kansas in Illinois. And so they have surprised everyone so far this year. And right now, it's really tight. PFF's actually ranking. PFF is a little bit slow with their rankings, but they've got Nebraska at 36, Illinois at 41. So this is a tight game from PFF's perspective. So like, what are your thoughts so far on Illinois, their schedule, and their ability to replace the talent that they lost last year, and how they performed so far being 3-0?
Brett's just a great Big Ten coach.
Yep.
And I think about last year, that was Nebraska's best win. Going into Illinois on a night game, being able to get that win with the talent that they had, and Nebraska's defense stepping up in the way that they did, where it was really the eye-opener for, I think, all of Nebraska football that, Matt Rhule's a good coach and we're headed somewhere positive. I also want to bring up the Matt Rhule bad record versus ranked opponents. We haven't been here where this has mattered, but I think for Matt Rhule too, just for his legacy as he continues, he has a bad record against ranked opponents. So for us to be able to step into this, for him to be able to kind of start writing his legacy at Nebraska, this is a big game. Sell out 400,
and when you're up, when you're favored 9.5, there's pressure to perform.
Yeah, if we want to be the team late where we're actually competing for something, this is a must-win game. I think Luke Altmaier is a great quarterback. If we start there on the offense, we've ranked him high, in our Big Ten preseason rankings as a QB. We thought he's so impressive, can make a lot of great throws, awesome in the pocket, and he has weapons that we did not foresee happening. We talked about in our, in some of the preseason rankings that they had some transfers that if they end up turning out, it could work out for them. But their wide receivers have looked really good this year.
Yeah, like when you're trying to replace a guy who's as physically talented as Isaiah Williams, and a dominant physical tight end, and Tip Ryman, who's went to the NFL, Casey Washington as well. I mean, their ability to find the talent here and find the guys who can work for this offense is really impressive. Like you said, it goes to show that Bielema is just a great coach and can find that talent. But yeah, talk to me about these wide receivers. I mean, right now, they've got 2 receivers ranked in the top 13 highest graded receivers in the Power 5 right now out of 200 qualified, Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant. What do you think of these dudes?
Yeah, so Pat Bryant's the guy that's been there before. It's his 4th year at Illinois. He has almost 1,400 career snaps. He's a 3-year starter. So he's been there for a while, but he's really improved. Again, being a 6'3", 200-pound body, he's the bigger physical guy. And someone who's, again, played so many Big Ten reps, he's a really big problem. And then the newcomer is Zachary Franklin, who's that 6th-year senior from UTSA, and also
by way of Ole Miss.
Yes, and then to Ole Miss, who he didn't perform quite as well as one would hope at Ole Miss, but he's looked really good. out of 62 qualified for the Power 5 in man this season, he was like 14th in the country. We're going to have to be tested at that in some point with Illinois. So I think Zachary, it looked really good on the tape when we watched back those games. I'm excited for the matchup. I think Tommy Hill's got a lot on his hands. And if we want to be that great defense, I think Tommy and Buford have a big role in trying to stop these guys. Right.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up Luke Altmaier before, but I think these receivers really complement Luke Altmaier and how he plays. And they call a really good game to highlight Altmaier's skills and abilities. I mean, he's mobile. He gets the ball out quick. He's really accurate in that 10 to 20 yard range. And but he has a good deep ball, especially when you have guys like Zachary Franklin, who has insane reach and incredible hands, who's made some amazing catches this year so far. Like this is an offense that's hard to beat. Like you said, like if you blitz, you have a guy like Zachary Franklin who's great against man. If you play zone, well, you got Pat Bryant there, who's been really good at finding the zone across the middle, busting zones across the middle of the field. And then, if you play a soft shell coverage, Altmaier can find his way out of the pocket and rush for a first down on 3rd and 12. So there's a really well-balanced offense. They're not going to wow you in any way or another, but like they really get the job done. And they have a complementary football is, I think, a great word for this team, because also their special teams has been converting. So like right now, they haven't failed to score in the red zone. They're 100% in the red zone, which is the best, obviously tied for best in the country. And but statistically right now they're 45th in points per play, 74th in yards per play. So the average performance stems from the lack of running game right now for this offense.
And so you would also say that maybe there's some regression to the mean in red zone conversion, hopefully for Nebraska as we get into this, being 100% with maybe the lack of running the ball, which Bielema talked this week in the press conference about the importance of doing. Caden Fagan for Illinois he's okay, but it's just not what Reggie Love III was, because he's left. So we're not going to see him this year. He transferred to Purdue, surprisingly enough. Did you think Fagan was the better guy? I mean, he's younger, but
yeah, him and Valentine are all right. They're both okay. To me, there's not a clear better player. I mean, last year, think about this. Last year, they only rushed the ball with their running backs 12 times against us. They threw the ball 47 times. So, like, if they come with any similar plan, right? They found out quick that they couldn't run the ball. And so I do wonder if that's going to be something similar this year. So there are some interesting X factors here, which we'll talk about later when it comes to their offensive line and how they play overall. But I think that is something to watch exactly, is how this running game plays out. And there's not really a clear guy there that's going to be dominant, who's going to take over. But Valentine seemed like, probably to me, a more balanced running back than Fagan did. We'll talk more about that in the X factors for sure. So on the defensive side, like you said, I mean, they're replacing Jerzon Newton, Keith Randolph. And so going into the year, we were like, how in the world is Illinois going to replace that production? I mean, you don't just replace that. I mean, look what happened to them after they lost that secondary, those pieces there. It took them a little bit. And so we thought there's just no way. But it seems like they found some guys. They brought in a few guys, and a lot of these guys were already in the program. And right now they've got 4 players in the top 70 out of 282 qualified defenders in pass rush grade right now in the Power 5. So they found, I mean, Nebraska's best is Prince Will at 72nd. So we have nobody in the top 70. They have 4. So they found ways to get to the quarterback against Kansas. We saw Daniels have some really tough time against Illinois here, and he forced some turnovers, and they're really good in coverage. So this team is a really well-balanced defense. They might not be as physically dominant when you lose Jerzon Newton and Keith Randolph, but they do it a different way this year than last year.
Yeah, it is complementary in that way with 2 great edge rushers in Barna and Bryant. Again, that's something we're worried about. We've been worried about for Nebraska this whole season. How can our tackles handle the pressure? We saw it against Colorado that we struggled in the second half against that. Luckily, I think we have a great QB in Dylan Raiola to be able to handle these things. But for me, I'm most worried about Miles Scott in the secondary, even more so than the pass pressure. He's extremely athletic. He's so good in man coverage, and I think they're going to be able to take some things away from Dylan. And when you combine that with the pressure that is ensuing, this is going to be the first true test for Dylan to see a Big Ten defense, to see a coach who's great defensively, who's going to throw some trickier things, who's really going to level up. Because while we're playing some good coaches, they don't have all the chess pieces. Now here's a guy who has more of a board to try and trick Dylan.
Well, right now, the highlight for them, again, it's about coverage and keeping the play in front of them. I mean, after losing Jerzon Newton and Keith Randolph, they've really switched up how they play defense. And they run, in the last 2 years, they've been known for their 5-man bear fronts and playing a ton of man single high safeties and just letting their safety blow up dudes on the sideline and be all over the field. And they were really willing to play fast with their safeties and play a really unique style of defense. But this year, they've been playing a little bit more zone. They've been mixing it up, playing more cover 2. I think they do a really good job of identifying the weakness in your offensive line and then using their linebackers, which is most of their best edge rushers, to go after them and really attack them with stunts and different pass rushing schemes that seem to be really effective. So their linebacker right now, who's best in coverage, is Dylan Rosiak. And right now he's 5th of 606 qualified defenders in man coverage grades on PFF and 11th in overall coverage grades. This is all defenders. So he has been fantastic so far in 3 games. And like you said with Miles Scott, I mean, this is his 2nd year starting. He's technically a 4th year player, but 2nd year starting. Like you said, athleticism score, he was 97th percentile in PFF's game athleticism score, which is their new athleticism metric that measures on-field analytics. That's insane. And so right now, he's the 5th highest graded coverage defender in the country. And I think he's a legitimate NFL stud. He's going to get drafted high this year.
The pass rushing really brings me into the biggest X factor of the game. It's continued to be this for the last few years for Nebraska. There's no escaping it. We can't talk about Nebraska football without talking about the worry of offensive line. It's improved. The pass protection has improved this year. We've jumped miles ahead, being 5th in PFF versus 62nd in the pass protection. Part of that is Dylan Raiola. He's so good in the pocket. I think to a play in the second half where the pocket breaks down on the left side, he is able to, again, feel that pressure even without seeing it, step up and make a quick throw across the middle to Jamal Banks. That blows my mind. That's something that
beautiful.
I mean, NFL level throw, right? In a super tight window.
Tom Brady level throw.
Yeah. You can, again, only not being able to see it, but just feel the pressure and to be able to move up that pocket. So I know he's prepared for this, but it's huge. And Mazuka felt like a huge upgrade for the offensive line, something that we desperately needed. And for him to be lost and now going to Letufsky, it was hard watching the film. Our offensive line did look worse. Our rush game was worse. Because we had something great, and now we have Letufsky, who's a huge downgrade. He's going to have to get a lot better for us to be that team offensively we want to be and be as good as running the ball as we could. And that's why in the second half, our offense stuttered. A lot of it was because our offensive line was not doing well getting a push. And now we're facing a competent Big Ten team, a ranked Big Ten team. And it's a big difference that really concerns me in a way that I wasn't concerned at the beginning of the season because we added Mazuka.
Right. And when you talk about again, their ability to really identify the weak links and attack the quarterbacks and have 4 guys who are in the top 70 in pass rush grades and who have been efficient so far and have gotten even to mobile quarterbacks like Daniels, you get a little worried that this could be a game where Raiola might make some mistakes. I mean, again, he's been below average in the country in grades while under pressure. So far this year, it's been hit or miss. I mean, obviously, he's been really good at taking care of the ball, but when it comes to finding completions and making plays downfield, it hasn't been as effective. But again, he's a young quarterback. There's obviously tons of room to improve, and he does so many things at an incredibly high level already. But regardless, that is something to watch for in his game, and makes you a little bit worried about Nebraska's efficiency. There could be times where these drives just stall because of a sack, a turnover, a strip sack, errors in general across the offensive line. So I'm a bit worried about the offense and how it can convert on a consistent basis in a game like this, considering there is an X factor like that.
My next X factor is our defense, and to be a top 15 defense, is going to have to stop this mediocre Illinois rush offense.
One-dimensional.
We have to make them one-dimensional. We were able to do it last year, like you talked about, and a big reason why we were able to win the game and why Bret has been talking about so much how they need to be able to run the football to be a good Big Ten team. We are first in the country in opponents' rush yards per game, 36. That's it. And we saw Northern Illinois get a little bit more on us because of being able to spread us out. But we are going to have to buckle down and just not allow anything from this Illinois rush game and make them one-dimensional and allow our team to be great on the secondary for Tommy Hill. And
which player to you is the biggest X factor in that? I mean, right now it's been, we saw John Bullock have a great game against Colorado, but then last week it was rough tackling. It's been inconsistent last week with the tackling in general, and at the point of attack, it seemed less decisive with lacking speed in general. And so what for you is the difference?
I think that spread offense where they just had, 5 guys wide, I didn't think the communication was great. It just didn't look as clean as our defense had been in general. So hopefully that's cleared up with having, again, more of a traditional pro style offense. But it always comes down to Ty and Nash, right? How can we dominate up the middle? And that's what's exciting is their center has been the weak link of their offensive line, which was turned out to be a great thing for us against Colorado. Having that and having Ty just lining up in zero and wrecking that guy's night for, 50 snaps is something that can happen again this game. And that's a big mismatch for us. Luckily, while our offensive line and theirs doesn't match up, hopefully that Ty Robinson, just being the menace that he is, can be enough in this game. And I think that's a big X factor. Luckily, our interior line is our strength and it's their weakness, where it could line up and still work out for us on defense.
Yeah, this was my biggest X factor of the game for sure. I mean, because the matchup's really nice. Like you said, right now, 20% of Altmaier's pressures are from the center, specifically, which is the 8th most in the Power 5. And essentially right now, Altmaier is getting sacked on 8.47% of his dropbacks, which is 101st, one of the 20 worst in the country. So basically, and when you pair that with Altmaier's performance under pressure, this really turns into a pretty significant X factor. Because right now, I mean, overall, he's been, from a game management perspective, his ability to make decisions under pressure, things on those lines, it's been interesting. Right now, overall, he's the 25th graded quarterback in the Power 5. But when not pressured, he's the 11th graded quarterback in the Power 5. When pressured, he's the 51st. And what's even more interesting about that is it actually isn't correlated to when he's blitzed or not blitzed. It's basically he's the exact same when blitzed or not blitzed, which just means you've got to get pressure against Luke Altmaier. It doesn't matter how you get home, you just got to get home. That means you can send the house. So then it comes down to how much do you trust your corners to defend these elite wide receivers? And I think that inherently is an X factor. I think we trust Tommy Hill, but how do you feel about that matchup of like Buford versus Pat Bryant?
I saw some good things last game against NIU that got me excited for Buford as a corner. He made a couple really good plays.
That first
we
quarter
know
one,
that he still has to settle into this role because he is switching and there is still a lot for him to learn. I think he's going to do well and succeed in this position. I think I am worried, somewhat. Malcolm Hartzog's tackling ability has really scared me, even more than Marcus Buford's coverage ability.
Is this a question here? Is there a world where you could see him not starting in the future? Because to me, it's, at this point, it's pretty clear why we swapped Buford and Hartzog. It's very clear why. He was undersized and lack of physicality at the line of scrimmage. Now he's the coverage safety. But, is there a world where we have a better guy behind him at this point? There might be.
Yeah, you're hoping. I mean, he has experience, but maybe that's just not enough, where maybe if we have a guy who's around the same ability, I'd rather have someone else be learning than,
I mean, he had the pick, but it was kind of a breadbasket pick. I mean,
that was a very easy pick. So it wasn't very difficult.
I agree on the defensive side. For me, the only other thing to mention on the offensive side as an X factor is you have to talk about the penalties last game and the issues we've had. I mean, clearly, if you just reduce one or two of those, we have an extra almost 100 yards of rushing. Shout out Ja'Cory Barney. I mean, the upside is there for this offense if you can be disciplined, and there's so much potential there. So
much.
The question is, can you just convert? And then it comes down to kicking.
Yeah, I mean, that's scary in itself. The special teams are not being able to get the ball into the end zone. It is worrisome. The field goal shakiness, and where we saw Illinois hit a ton of kicks, 50-yarders last week, 48-yarders. It was really consistent, and that's a game changer for them, and worrisome for us that we can't keep up. If that becomes the game for us, I mean, I'm scared on a 30-yard field goal every time Tristan Alvano walks out. So, yeah, it's a huge difference.
It's a huge X factor. That could be a 9-point swing or something along those lines. We missed one, they hit 3. Or hit 2.
And a big reason why our red zone scoring is at 70% compared to Illinois that's at 100% because their kicker hits field goals.
Exactly. It's that simple sometimes. So I do get a bit worried when you have like the pass rush advantage, you have a special teams advantage, you have a really nice secondary that can turn that is right now forcing turnovers at a high rate, similar to us right now, actually. So that's why you have to be at least a little bit worried. So is there any other things that you want to see in this game specifically?
Continue to see the young guns in the game. I want Ja'Cory Barney on the field more. I want Carter Nelson on the field more. We talked about it at the beginning of the game. And Banks to step up. I don't think Banks has really shown his best stuff either. I need Banks and the wide receivers. Like Rhule said, I mean, Dylan Raiola is the best part of our offense. I think our running game can still get stuff done with our running backs. Hopefully that means we lean on Emmett more because we think he's the best.
Yeah.
But
like, even a guy like Ramir Stewart, it'd be interesting to see him at least maybe just tease it a little bit with him out there. Yeah. I'd be interested to know what else he can do. But
I think that we got to be smart with
34
points a game. We're 26 in the country, and I still think that can keep up because of the talent of Raiola and the quality of a lot of our weapons. But
right, I think 56 in yards per play is probably a little bit more truth telling about our offense because of our offensive line right now and the youth we have.
Yes.
But I wanted to say because like right now Isaiah Nayer, because he's a very interesting player because right now on PFF he's the 5th highest graded player versus zone out of 165 qualified Power 5 wide receivers. But he is dead last against man right now out of 101 qualified receivers. So there's a huge difference here. And so for me, it's like sometimes in these games, he looks great. And sometimes he just disappears for multiple drives. And that's why, because right now defenses are maybe starting to figure it out a little bit. So for me, I don't want to raise the alarm bells yet. It's a small sample size, but it is something for me to watch, to look for in this game. See how Nayer plays against man specifically and see how he separates, how he releases, especially towards the outside, and what he can do at the line of scrimmage when he's jammed. I mean, you'd expect him to be, he's long, he's physical, so you'd hope that he can get off the line and create separation, but it hasn't necessarily happened yet so far. So that is something big for me to watch. So with that said, let's get into the real reason we're all here, which is predictions. So Caleb, take it away. What are your thoughts on this game? What's going to be the real X factor for you, the game changer?
Nebraska wins 31-13. It's a big win. Here's the three main reasons of why we're doing this. One, it's another night game. That's why we're that big of a favorite, I think, in my mind. It's a touchdown. It's incredible how loud we are. I'm impressed of the false starts that our crowd's able to give. I think I think we walk in 7-0 because of the crowd instead of 3-0. But besides that point, I think our defense is truly legitimate. And we're going to be able to create more plays than Illinois can. The third reason is Dylan Raiola is going to be able to take care of the ball and drive down the field. I think those three things are going to continue to be the reason why Nebraska is so good. And we're going to continue to get the ball. Our offense, the great news is the best parts of our offense are young and are going to continue to improve. And we know that Matt Rhule's teams get better as the year goes on. Also, defense, kind of feeling like it was a letdown against Northern Illinois, might be the best thing that we could have had for them this week, because they should be disappointed with how many rush yards they gave up and how they played at points in that game. But they're going to be able to tape the ball away. And, I think if this was in Illinois, I'm worried. I think our defense is elite, and the matchups are nice. So I think we will pull this out.
That's very interesting because I have a much different interpretation of the script in this game. I think it's more likely in my mind that we see a low-scoring bruiser of a Big Ten game where our offense stalls, but our defense is just legitimate, and we make them one-dimensional, and they have enough plays downfield where they get a few field goals, they find the touchdown. But I think a lower-scoring game is more likely than like a 31-point offensive performance, even if the defense was to get one. But because to me, I think their defense is legitimate. I really do. I think it is. And this is, by far the best defense we've played so far this year. So in my mind, the offense is going to find its first time where we really stall at points. And this defense is this is a great coach team. They have legitimate talent up front. They have a great secondary that can isolate talent. And again, with a guy like Nayer, I'm sure they're going to scheme him man to man. I'm sure they're going to find ways to jam Banks at the line of scrimmage and keep him in check. And then that just gives their front five or six guys, however many they end up sending, enough time to expose our transitioning offensive line right now without Mazuka. So to me, that's where I think the narrative's really scary. But at the same time, I really do believe, and I'm right with you, that that Nebraska's defense is legitimate. We have an awesome matchup at center, like I talked about with the X factors, and that we should get home and cause some problems. But at the same time, they have enough pieces. They're going to have a few moments downfield. I think at some point, Hartzog's going to get outsized downfield, something along those lines. Or we've seen inconsistent coverage from Gifford and from this linebacking core at times. So that's why I'm not confident to pick like a big win by any means. I'm much more comfortable picking Illinois to cover at least. With all of that said, I do think the X factor is that matchup on the defensive side for us. So I'm going to pick Nebraska to win in a lower scoring game, 20-16, with Illinois covering, but Nebraska playing it close. Right now, I forgot to mention that the points total right now is 43.5 at opened at, and it's 42.5 right now. So I'm taking the under on the points as well. Overall, it's going to be one of those muddied games where I think this is going to be brutal and the offense is going to be caught off guard a little bit with, realizing that, this is a Big Ten play. It's a little bit different than playing against Northern Illinois or UTEP, and that this offensive line is probably not as good as we wish it would be, especially without Mazuka. So that's where I'm at with it. I think it's going to be a fun one, though, and obviously I'm picking Nebraska to win. So at the end of the day, if the win's the win against a top 25 team, who cares if you cover or not? I think you're just, that's really how we're going to continue to see Dylan, like how incredibly accurate he is with his throwing. And I think I hope he can take care of the ball. But in a game like this, we even saw it, there was games like, again, Casey Thompson 2 years ago, even against Illinois, like at some point, if there's enough pressure, there's just nothing you can do. We've seen that in the NFL with great quarterbacks. So at some point, that's what I'm just really worried about, especially against a secondary like this. Yeah, exactly. So I would expect a few turnovers on both sides in a game like this. So it's going to be a fun one. Obviously, drop all your comments down below. Join us on Discord and hang out with us there. We'll be doing the predictions. And with that said, also in the Discord every week we do predictions. So shout out Krookie4012 with the prediction of 41-3. Not bad for a Husker win last week. And it's going to be a fun one this week. I fully expect my prediction to do quite well, but we'll see what happens. But as always, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been a fun one. And as always, this has been Big Red Homestead. And guys, we'll see you next time.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red, baby.